If I look back at my school years, having talks from mental health experts in schools was almost unheard of. In fact, from my grandparents and parents, this was almost unrelatable, unthinkable. My mother still wonders, why do people come and listen to me? What is it that I'm actually going to say which is going to make a difference? From that to today, we've come a long way. There's a lot more awareness, a lot more acceptance. As a society, we're going in the right direction. We just need to keep continuing to do this because there is so much more that needs to be done to be able to reach that last mile. I remember this one conversation with a 16-year-old. Episodes of bad fights, bullying with close friends. Decided to part ways with the help of the parents. Coped, made new friends, felt better. Eventually got consumed by feelings of fear, anxiety, sadness. Spiraled further down, impacted every aspect of life. Came to me after struggling for a year. Began sharing. The sheer shame and the fact that would not have imagined ever would be sitting in front of a psychologist talking about this. Because aren't these supposed to be a part of our life? And we need to be strong enough to be able to manage them. And at least that's what has been told. And what virtually I've been doing is watching shows to shut my mind, virtually disconnected, feeling anger, helplessness, which tends to come out in the form of aggression, which is criticized then, condemned. And if I look around, in some way or the other, everybody seems to be doing this. This seems to be like a new normalization. That stayed. We may all be living a different version of the story, or may have lived a different version of the story in our lives. But let's look at the world around us. The constant demand of the modern day life, the hustle, the bustle, the rush, pressure of appraisals, performance, urban loneliness that we've recently began talking about so much more. Changes in the family structure, the movement that can make one experience feelings of isolation, feelings of lack of support, the rising aggression in the society that can create feelings of lack of safety and insecurity within, and then this proliferation of media and technology, which is so pervasive, so persistent, so intrusive, that the digital interface has not only impacted the adults, but even the young ones. I mean, the value that they place on the likes, the dislikes, the followers, the fact that having that moment clicked when you go to a restaurant or a place and putting those status updates rather than actually having that conversation with your friend sitting next to you is so much more important. The social conformity, which makes you lose your sense of individuality. All of this put together puts so much pressure on our mental health. Let's also look at the facts. According to WHO, 10 to 20% of world's children and adolescents have a diagnosable mental health condition. Suicide continues to be the third leading cause of death between 15 to 19 years of age. Half of all mental illnesses begin by the age of 14 years, which is unidentified, undiagnosed, and untreated. And having experts alone in a country like India, where there is more than 500% shortage of experts, is not the solution. In fact, anywhere across the world, expertization alone is not the solution. Because by the time we would have experts, the problems will increase even more. So what we need to focus on is prevention, on resilience, and building an environment of mental awareness and wellness. This is where we need to look at where we can bring in different stakeholders. So if we look at it, corporates, schools, families, communities, to me essentially schools is the place where we can make a difference, because these are one of the formative years where a child spends 10 to 13 years of their life. And this is the opportunity where we can create an impact and make a difference. So we talk about subjects, we teach them maths, we teach them science, we teach them EVS, we talk about tests, scores, this performance, that performance. How about we change the way we look at literacy? And just right there, we put in mental health literacy. Because that's what matters. So now we know the extent of the problem, we know the deficits, and now we need to look at the solution. So the solution is having a mental health curriculum in our education system. And this is where the role of educationists also come into play. To be able to raise their hands, extend their voice, put their effort and direction into mental health curriculum. So let's look at what all a mental health curriculum entail. So talking and understanding about mental health and understanding mental illnesses also. Bring in the component of how to break the stigma, the stereotypes, the taboo, the discrimination, because when we are able to do that, we are also able to bring in help seeking. So enhancing help seeking and building resilience in our young people, because again, there is so much more that's there in life that we need to look at and focus on how to build skills. And then also bringing in the element of positive mental health and culture of well-being within the classroom. So from classroom to schools, from schools to community, from community to society, and that's how we create an environment that prioritizes mental wellness and mental health. Now let's understand mental health. According to WHO, mental health is a state of well-being where an individual realizes his or her true potential, is able to work productively, cope with stress, lead a fulfilled life, and contribute as members to the society. Now we come to think of it, isn't this what we want our children to be? Happy, positive, productive, fruitful, value-based, and blossom into their individual selves. That's what mental health is. It's not merely an absence of illness, but it's a state of well-being. So when we talk to children, it could be as simple as, have you been able to pick up a hobby? Are you practicing digital detox? Do you spend time with parents and family? Do you sleep on time? That's what mental health encompasses. Now let's understand mental illnesses. So if we look at the biopsychosocial model, the biological factors being the genetic predisposition, neurotransmitters, which are also commonly known as chemical imbalances. If we look at the psychological factors, it's our personality, the way we've been brought up, our skill set, how we cope with life, and the social factors, which is our friends, family, work environment, school, community. And it's the interface of these three that makes mental illnesses happen. So if there is a child who understands that if I have a headache and I can go to first aid, talk to the nurse, seek help. If I am playing on the playground, I get bruised, I put a band-aid. If I have fever, I call up my parents, they take me to the doctor, and I seek treatment. But if the same child is struggling emotionally, is feeling irritable, has had episodes of bullying, is having sleep problems, does not know what to do with that. The child is not aware that there is help available, that it's not on you, it's not about a character flaw, it's not about your weaknesses, it's not something that you've caused yourself, it's not something that you can snap out of. It is a place where you need to seek help, like any other physical illness. And this is where the role of mental health curriculum comes, where we educate the children on the signs, the symptoms of recognizing mental health conditions and illnesses. So when they recognize and be aware of the early signs, they're able to reach for a timely intervention for help. And this is how we are able to promote help seeking. You know, when I talk to children about help seeking, you're feeling hungry, you don't know what to eat, you ask a parent, that's help seeking. You're playing basketball, you dribble a ball to your peer, that's help seeking. You're having problems in a subject, you call up a teacher, that's help seeking. It's the same way when you're struggling emotionally, when you're struggling at a personal level, at a social level, you must reach out and seek for help. And for that, children need to know that there is help available and they feel comfortable in the environment that we provide them, that they are able to reach out for help. So when we look at early identification, when we make them aware of the signs and symptoms, they are able to reach out for help and we are able to give them timely intervention. We pick up the problem and we nip it in the bud. But that's not it. Globally, stigma continues to be the key factor, whether it's a developed country or a developing country, or why people hesitate to seek help. And you look at films, you look at social media, there is stigma around us. You look at society, there is so much stereotype, discrimination, beliefs around mental illnesses. And this is how social stigma is created, which then impacts the individual, their sense of self-esteem. They begin to blame themselves, that I'm the one to be blamed, this is me who's caused this, and I'm the one who's weak, and I need to manage it on my own, and I'm the one who's also impacting everybody else's life around me. And also begins to harbor feelings of guilt, feelings of shame. And with the discrimination, the fear that happens, one also withdraws further in seeking help. This is the cycle we need to break, because once you get into this vicious cycle, it's a dark, deep spot where you believe you cannot come out of. You feel that there is no help available, no one will be able to understand what I'm going through. So through the use of the curriculum, when we educate students, children, on how to break the stigma, the stereotypes, the taboos, on how to stop the discrimination, by talking about the language that we use, the name calling that happens, the terms that one uses, she's anxious, he's depressed. Instead, one shows dignity, one shows respect. You segregate the individual from the illness. You say he's being treated for anxiety, I am being treated for OCD, she's being treated for depression. And that's how we build their self-esteem. We maintain dignity, we maintain respect, we show sensitivity. And then as young students, young children, you become mental health advocates. You make positive use of social media to change the mental health narrative around us. Now let's talk about building resilience in children. Now, life is going to keep giving us challenges and changes, but we need to be able to build the skills to cope with it. We often talk about building immunity for our physical self. How about building immunity for our social self, for our emotional self? Giving children the safe space to express themselves, and instilling positivity and optimism in them, giving them skills to build ways on how to stay optimistic, helping them recognize their strengths, celebrate their successes, also accept their weaknesses. But we really focus on building solid self-belief and solid confidence. And from there, we go on to building and creating a culture of well-being in the classroom. To me, classroom, as I imagine it to be like a happy place. Yes, I may sound utopian, but I am an eternal optimist. So a place where if I have a problem, a teacher approaches me with compassion, with empathy. And I connect with my friends with values, with responsibility, without bringing anyone down with negativity. I enjoy being in this place. I feel safe. And most importantly, I learn to be who I am and not anybody else. Now, this is what mental health curriculum does. You create this environment of positive mental health, and you pick this environment from classroom to schools, from schools to community, from community to district, to state, to country, to building a society which is mental health positive, compassionate, and sensitive. How do we do this? We use the compassion and commitment of teachers who are the pillars of our society. You know, they do it in a way where we train teachers and then they empower and train students, not in a conventional way, but using life stories in a conversational style, group discussions, activities, playful way. And that's how, when we use these 10 to 13 years of a child's life in talking about positive mental health, these students grow up to be without any stigma, prioritizing their mental health. So I believe all stakeholders, we need to come together, raise our hands, extend our voices, move in the direction now. Because I believe time for mental health curriculum has come.